The whole gun-free zone is a misnomer. All it does is make good citizens unable to defend themselves and to carry weapons.
When Chicago finally had to allow people to have guns in their homes, there was a 40% drop in home burglaries.
The Swedish Lottie, the M40.
Thanks for tuning in to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin, coming to you from the gun store in Las Vegas, Nevada. This program is all about guns, politics, and self-defense. On this edition, the panel discussions are going to cover, first, Utah is a state with no school shootings at all, so far. There are several reasons behind that we'll get into. Then we have an amazing shootout which took place in Texas City, Texas, that will really add to the lore you hear once in a while of people saying don't mess with Texas. And a very controversial issue suddenly is what age should one be allowed to purchase a handgun? Several states are looking toward lowering their age to 18, where the federal government makes it at 21. That will be an interesting discussion. But first, we're going to start out talking about Utah. There's a lot of press about school shootings over and over again. Now when we get a school shooting with someone maybe being on campus and maybe someone was shot, maybe not, it makes headlines across the country. Utah has not experienced that at all so far. It is, in general, a very self-reliant, oriented state where people help their neighbors, and that seems to carry over into self-defense issues.
Yeah, it's one of the few states that doesn't restrict the concealed carry permit holders from carrying on school property. So it's very well known that the bad guys know that the good guys have guns as well. And I think having not as many gun-free zones in Utah really allows people like teachers or parents or witnesses and passersby to be able to intervene if anything was to come up. I think the bad guys know that someone's going to be there to come to their defense.
Well, the whole gun-free zone is a misnomer. Gun-free declared by the government doesn't in fact make it gun-free. All it does is make good citizens unable to defend themselves and to carry weapons in the gun-free zone. But of course the bad guys, they're going to see the gun-free zone and respect that law just as they respect all laws. Yeah. So it really is it's a politician trying to get votes. It has nothing to do with reality, and it's just another way for the politicians to feather their nest with voting.
Well, the crazy part is 18 states allow people to carry guns onto school campuses with the proper permits or permission from the administration or from the state. You can find stories all over the internet where individuals thwart school shootings, or the individual says, well, I would have gone there except for there was a gun out front. So,
well, besides being armed citizens that help, though, you got to blame the press a little bit as far as glorification of these things. I mean, you would never know Adam Lanza. We all know who Adam Lanza is. By them glorifying and putting body counts and pictures in it, it was if there was a complete news blackout on these deranged people, we wouldn't have this problem. I mean, we wouldn't have it, but it would reduce it a lot. I mean, one guy sees it, and then the next guy wants to.
It wouldn't glorify it and make them a celebrity.
There you go.
But freedom of the press is as much a constitutional right as what should be freedom to carry a weapon. So you can't just say, hey, there should be a news blackout of news that we don't like to hear. I mean, yes, does it trigger some sick minds because, hey, that guy killed 16 people. I want to get 17.
There you go.
I think that you're right when you say that will trigger people, but still, you have to weigh the freedom of the press, constitutional right, as much as the Second Amendment.
We have freedom of the press. We've got to have responsible press. I mean, the freedom of the press drives child pornography and things like that. But whenever we're going to take one of these youngsters who is a melonhead to begin with, and he gets his picture on the front of Time magazine, and this is what the score is, and the other ones have talked about it in their scribblings when they've been caught, that they were trying to beat this guy's score and so forth. If they didn't have the publicity, they could simply say there was a school shooting that happened here or a bad shooting that happened here. and a 17-year-old was arrested and he's in jail, and that's it.
Wait a minute, I have a brilliant idea. It just came to me. Do you remember in the Old West when they killed the bad guys? They used to put them in the casket in front of the store for down the western town. I'm thinking that we might be able to take a chapter.
Might
out
be
of
onto
that Old
something, huh,
West.
Randy?
This is one of those areas that's going to be really a challenge because everybody wants to protect the children, and I'm sure the administrators who fight against guns on campus believe they are. But every time I talk to teachers who are CCW individuals or administrators who are proactive in defending the kids, they all admit the same thing, which is we would love to have armed police officers here to stop this stuff from happening. And they would like it if they could step out and say, if a teacher wants to take the right training and carry a firearm, we should allow them to do that. The other side of this is most school districts, big ones at least, are unionized. And the unions are fighting against this because they think it's going to turn into a, if you're a teacher, you must carry a firearm. That's not necessary at all. Some firearms in trained hands is as good as everyone being armed. Because then the bad guy doesn't know, is the lady sitting behind the desk in the front office, Adam Lanza comes to mind, right? Walked in through the front, shot his way in, walked in the front door. One person in that office could have stopped that whole thing.
Well, and there's data for that if you want to take it to a school. When Chicago finally had to allow people to have guns in their homes, over the next time period they clocked, and I don't recall it was 3 or 6 months, there was a 40% drop in home burglaries. Why would that happen? Because, these bad guys, now they're looking at the school. They're nuts, and they go, well, if I go there and I shoot somebody, one, all I have to do is when I get tired is put the gun down. Nobody will shoot me, and I'll get my picture in the front of the paper. I'll be on all news media tonight. Everybody will know who I am, and I'll be famous. And then they're going to put them in a nice, cushy nut house. There's no threat of anything that keeps that nutcase from shooting a school, other than, I hate to say it, you sound like the NRA recording, but a good guy with a gun ends that, but it ends the opportunity because they're crazy, but they're not total fools. They don't want to get killed, most of them.
Actually, I would disagree with you on that. If you look at the history of the real mass school shootings, not the one where the kid takes a gun and shoots the bully who was mean to him, but the Adam Lanzas, those individuals who go into a school, they almost always wind up either committing suicide or dying in a hail of bullets when the good guys with guns show up.
That's what I'm saying. When does that happen? When they're
The response
confronted.
time.
Their
When they're
plan is always to
confronted
die.
with equal force or deadly force, they take the easy way out. They either shoot themselves or
But either direction's an easy way out.
Right.
You just throw the gun down. You're not even going to get beat up. You're going to get hauled away in a nice soft car, and there's no penalty.
You mentioned
for this.
Chicago with the reduction in crime when they were allowed to keep guns in their houses. There's one that's even a little starker than that because it shows that the bad guys think about who they're going to attack. In Chicago, it's, well, maybe they've got a gun. When Florida went to their CCW system, the armed attacks, the carjackings, almost overnight changed to tourists because in Florida at that time, all the rental cars had a special license plate. You knew it was somebody not from Florida. And suddenly where they were having all these bump and run carjackings where they'd rear end the car, run up, put a gun in the window, it was almost exclusively rental cars. So that showed the bad guys knew we have to change who we're going after. If they knew the schools were armed and they knew that the odds of them successfully doing 16, 17, beating whatever the last high number was, are greatly diminished, I think we would see those types of attacks go down significantly.
The publicity on anything, I think, drives it. It drives the little egos. I just can't see it. Everybody that wants their 5 minutes of fame, they get it automatically.
Well, you don't have to go very far to see that. All you have to do is watch reality television to see what depths people are willing to diminish themselves in order to get their mugs on television. So then you take a really addled mind, and everybody that's a school shooter is a loser. They were a loser for years before they elevated themselves into status in their own mind by committing these horrendous crimes. So you take a loser, and then you add the price of fame to him. Recipe for disaster.
No, it is. I mean, you're correct in that. There are all these guys that don't have any friends. They're loners. They're this and that because nobody wants to talk to them or be around them. I don't know, Randy, truthfully, if just being on television makes you a loser, but we'll discuss that in a different segment. We got a break for some commercials. We'll be right back.
What this 89-year-old man did, grabbed his gun, jumped in his car, and chased the thugs, and then they made that tactical error where they pulled into a dead-end street.
We are back here on Fired Up. This is an amazing story of self-defense out of Texas City, Texas. An 89-year-old man and his 71-year-old wife suffered a home invasion in January of this year. 3 young males jumped the husband at gunpoint as he was getting into his car. They forced him at gunpoint back into the house. And at that point, his wife then was also involved, and it just starts.
Actually, one of the masked thugs beat the husband to the floor so much that his wife thought he was having a heart attack. The group then came through and ransacked the whole house, ripped the phones out, locked the couple in the bathroom, and then just began to loot the whole place.
But the plot thickened here because the couple got out through another door. Mm-hmm. And then the wife ran to the neighbors to call the police, but when she got back, the husband's gone. And what this 89-year-old man did, he jumped in his car, grabbed his gun, jumped in his car, and chased the thugs for several miles. And then they made that tactical error where they pulled into a dead-end street.
Yeah.
Oops.
And then the old guy gets out of his car, proceeds to take cover, and then the gunfight commenced. And he kept those guys pinned down until the police came. And gunfight ended. No one got hurt. It's great.
And right as this ended, the press was all over it, of course, because we're dealing with an 89-year-old guy with a 71-year-old wife.
She likes older men.
Yeah.
He's obviously, she's 18 years his junior. And she says at the end of this to the press, should have shot and killed him. That's what's going through my mind. It's just an amazing thing that, I mean, dealing with an 89-year-old guy and he
Sounds
gets
like he's in better shape than I am.
beaten into the ground and he takes off after him.
I would love to know if this guy was a military veteran.
Yeah, really.
Because at that age, I would bet you that he was a World War II vet or a Korean vet.
Yeah.
And muscle memory came
Took
into his
cover.
mind.
I mean, and holds them down with suppression fire until the police get there. I mean, you got to, like you said, I'd love to see the background on this guy. I mean,
The end of this thing, before we get into the legal details that are here, but nobody was hit.
Yeah.
Nobody was injured in this whole thing, other than minor injuries, scrapes hitting the floor when he was beaten and so forth, but no gunshot wounds. Everybody walks away. This thing should be a television show.
Well,
this is a television
Here's
show.
what should be happening, and it isn't. We're talking about this here, but why didn't this make national news, and show how weapons can save your life, and that a motivated good guy can protect himself and his wife. This should be headline news, and yet it was probably a local story, and maybe a couple, it got its 5 seconds, but.
Most likely, and obviously the reason it didn't make national news is A, nobody died. Nobody was shot. And B, it doesn't tell the narrative that most of the media wants out there, which is the good guy with the gun, the bad guys. There's probably a whole lot more to who the 4 kids were, as opposed to who the gentleman with the firearm and his wife were, what neighborhoods they're all from, or what neighborhood they lived in. Maybe there's no incentive to put it on more than just the local media. Obviously, the legal challenges in this case, and fortunately it's Texas. And Bob, you're right. They have some interesting laws down there. We've talked about it before. It doesn't work quite like a lot of other jurisdictions, but in most jurisdictions, the minute those 4 had fled, You grab a gun and you chase them, you now become the primary aggressor in a new incident. And especially when you chase them into a place, and we've talked about this too, they didn't start shooting at him until they felt cornered. And he presented them with a threat that they felt they had to fight their way out of. In other jurisdictions, this guy could very easily have been arrested and charged with assault with a deadly weapon.
Oh, yeah, if this was
attempted
Maryland
murder,
or something, he
you know.
probably would have been. But
So-
first I got to point out how defense lawyers work. Your client was attacked by 3 guys, and now it's become 4 guys in the middle of the trial. So he's in more danger. But
So there's 3 guys, not 4. Got that part wrong. But the long and the short of it is, I'm glad he successfully defended himself when he had to. It shows the other side of this is every round he fired and every round they fired went somewhere. Those are all legal issues as well that would come into play. Again, back to it's Texas. The odds are he gets a parade before he gets a charging document.
oh yeah, and he did.
Well, doesn't
it's-
heroism deserve to be treated as such? I mean, I understand the legal issues that might have occurred had it been in New York City or somewhere else, but you know, this guy was a hero, and that is the kind of thing. Heroism needs to be celebrated instead of denigrated.
But anyone on this panel, I mean, if you had been asked, okay, what should this guy do if you could have called the shots, no one would have said, get in your car and go get after him.
That's true.
None
you're
of
right.
us would have been like, yeah, Grandpa, why don't you just go handle those 3 guys by yourself down in... No,
Right.
no one's going to say that.
The only way this one would have been worse is if he were a World War II or a Korean veteran, if he went in the back room, got his 03A3 with the rifles, the scope on it, and started shooting these guys at a half a mile down the road, you know.
Then we could have only silently applauded him.
It worked out here. This is another problematic area that a lot of individuals who commit these home invasion type crimes, they got him outside the house. They forced him back into the house. They probably knew how old he was. They probably suspected he wouldn't fight back because of his age and because of their youth, their numbers against his. It could have gone tragically wrong there as well. They had a firearm in the house. He didn't have it with him. Texas does have a CCW system. You can get the right to carry a firearm. I'm sure he probably never suspected that he would need that. Just
The best thing about the whole thing is that no one got hurt. This way, as far as any lawsuits or anything, there's not going to be any residual bad things happening in the whole incident. No one got hurt. He's the kids are in jail or whatever, and happy ending.
You know what? I'm not so sure that I agree with that, because these vermin,
They're going to be striking again, right?
They are. There's no doubt about it. If they have the audacity and the disrespect and the gutless wonder to go after an 89-year-old man and a 71-year-old wife, well, they have pretty much demonstrated.
Well, if they don't get jail time for this, Randy, you'd think that maybe, just maybe, they may have learned a lesson.
Oh, you're a dreamer. I don't think that they're going to learn a lesson. I think the only lesson that they would have learned is if they were in a pine box. That's my personal opinion.
Boy, I tell you,
Well,
hardcore, this guy.
in a few years, well, more than a few, he's going to be the 89-year-old chasing these guys down.
that's exactly what we talking about, Randy.
And he won't have a
Thank you for
71-year-old
saying
wife,
more
though.
than a few.
She'll still be 18 years your junior, right?
We on this show program, when we talk about self-defense cases like this, the group on the left is absolutely right. You should not chase people. What he should have done is make sure he's okay, his wife's okay, that the police are called. These guys are they knew what kind of car they were driving, et cetera, et cetera. It's daytime. But on the other side, you got to, rightly or wrong, you got to secretly admire this guy. I mean, if I'm ever in Texas City, I'm going to find this guy and shake his hand. And he did a great job. If it happens to you, don't chase him, but don't criticize this guy either. He did a great job. We're going to break here for some commercials. We'll be right back.
The Swedish Lottie, the M40.
We are here at the Rocky Mountain Show with the NRA booth. Maggie is currently running. And I know we've talked about people joining the NRA, and give me a couple of minutes as to why they should or we should go beat them up if they don't.
Well, one of the major reasons why we do want to affiliate ourselves with the NRA is because the NRA has our best interest at heart. We firearms owners protecting not only our Second Amendment but all of our civil liberties. Joining the NRA, you also get updated with magazines on a monthly. You'll get a monthly issue subscription. You can actually get the American Rifleman. You can also get the America's First Freedom. They also have a great hunting magazine. They'll keep hunters updated on the latest and greatest rifles and ammunition that are out there. Also joining the NRA, you get a lot of coverage for your firearms. You get $2,500 worth of firearms care in the event that your firearms are ever lost, stolen, or burnt in a fire. We also have $5,000 worth of disability in the event that you accidentally shoot your foot off. $5,000 worth of disability will actually go towards your medical expenses. Not only being a part of the NRA is a huge privilege. With that privilege comes great responsibility, and the NRA does hold great responsibility for our firearms. You know, being able to conceal carry or open carry, states are different. But the NRA is pro-firearm for self-defense, and then also for hunting, also for recreational. We actually do a lot of recreational shooting through the NRA. I'm an NRA certified firearm safety instructor as well. Being a part of the NRA has really changed my life and has really changed the lives of Americans being able to have their Second Amendment protected.
And if you're out there watching Fired Up and you are not an NRA member, you need to be. We're going to put a crawl on the bottom of here to show you where to contact them to join. And if you value your gun rights, you need to be a member. We are back. With me is Mitch, who runs the Rocky Mountain Gun Shows. We're his guests here filming some of the displays. This is an amazing show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Middle of this wonderful hotel. It's gorgeous, and it's it's just terrific. How long have you been doing these in Las Vegas? Long time.
You know, this is actually our 4-year anniversary. This month is our 4-year anniversary for the Rocky Mountain Gun Show, and we've been doing them here at South Point the whole time. The South Point Casino's been wonderful to us. It's a great facility, so we're real happy to be here. We get a great turnout.
Yeah, I can see that. And this is the second day, and the place is packed.
Yeah, yes.
The vendors seem to be
We've
happy.
got awesome vendor support, a lot of big vendors that follow us around. We do our best to keep them happy, and you know, we kind of pride ourselves on the advertising we do for our show. We do a ton of advertising, from billboards to radio, TV.
Well, you're about to have some more, apparently.
Yeah, and you know, just we really try to do a lot of advertising to, you know, to bring the people in for our vendors.
Well, it's just part of the gun industry. It's so nice to have this here because it creates a lot of interest in firearms, and the more
Sure.
publicity we all have, the better
Sure.
off we do.
We also offer a CCW class here, and that's a nice for the public, you know, to come in, and I think everybody should have their concealed weapons permit.
I couldn't agree more. You even have the ATF here.
Yep, the
answering
ATF
questions
is,
for people.
you know what, they've been very supportive of us. They compliment us on a show well run. They compliment us on being strict with our rules. You know, we try to follow the letter of the law as best we can, and make everybody happy, do what you're supposed to do, and
Well, I appreciate
everybody
you're,
can have
you're
the
putting the show on, and I appreciate you letting us in to film it as part of
absolutely.
our show.
We love. Thanks
And,
for coming.
It's it's good for everybody.
Yeah.
Anyway, I appreciate it very much.
All
Thank
righty.
you very much.
Thank
Mitch.
you.
Appreciate it.
Nice meeting you.
Hi, this is Tony with the Gun Store in Las Vegas. Thanks for watching Fired Up with Bob. Today we're going to be talking about another World War II pistol, the Swedish Lottie, the M40. This gun was originally designed by Amos Johannes Lottie for Finland back in 1929. And it was used in the Winter War. It was very, very popular. The Swedes needed a gun for World War II, and they actually started, they bought some German P-38s, but then they got a license to build the Lottie from Finland in Sweden. So the company Husqvarna built this gun. They redesignated it to the M40. Now, when the Swedes built the gun, they changed a little bit. They changed a few features on the gun. It had a loaded indicator, and they eliminated that. They had what they call a bolt accelerator. For the Scandinavian winters, they needed an accelerator to get the gun to work in the cold weather. The Swedes eliminated that. The other thing the Swedes did, which really wasn't very good, is that they changed the steel. They needed a high nickel steel for this gun, and they designated that steel for the barrel extension, and the frame. Well, because the steel was scarce, they only had enough of it to do the barrels. So the slide, or what they call a barrel extension or slide, and the frame were made out of an inferior grade of steel, and that caused a lot of problems. What happened is that the Finns, when they built the gun, it was really fortified, and this is a 9mm pistol, and it's a very heavy gun. When the Swedes started building it, then they streamlined it down a little bit, and it was real weak in this particular area. So they started to develop cracks back here. The service life for this gun, when the Swedes had it, was only 3,000 rounds, which was very, very low count. This gun here is a Swedish one, and as you can see back here, it actually did crack in that area on both sides. They went through like 4 different designs on the slide or barrel extension to prevent that, but it was a real problem. The gun was built all the way up until about I think in the 70s, and this one here was a Danish contract. You can see the markings for the Danish State Police. It is a very heavy gun for a 9mm. A lot of people said it looked like the Luger, but it really has nothing in common with the Luger at all. The Luger was a toggle type operation, and this was a breech block type action. So it had the only thing that was very similar with the Luger, it did have a shoulder stock, and a Luger shoulder stock would fit on this gun. It's a very, very pleasant gun to shoot because it is so heavy, and it is only 9mm. The holster that came with this Swedish gun, very all-encompassing. The Swedes had put 2 magazines in it. They put a cleaning rod in it, and also they put a loading tool, and it had a little screwdriver for the grips. And the reason why they used the loading tool is that the rounds sat at such a severe angle that the normal person would have a very, very difficult time with this little thumb piece to load it. So they used the loading tool to hold the follower down to load the magazine. And without the loading tool, it would be very difficult to load. It's very, very strong. Like the Luger, that's another thing with the Luger. They also had a very stiff magazine spring. We're only going to put 5 rounds in it, and then we're going to shoot it. Okay, we're going to load this one up and shoot it. Insert the magazine, retract the breech block, let it go, and it's charged and ready to fire. Slide stays back on the last shot, and I can tell you that this gun has virtually no recoil at all. It's very, very pleasant to shoot, and it's very, very accurate.
Hi there, Mike Rogers from the Gun Store. Time for Moron of the Week. Let's see how not to do things.
Question that I receive is, can I own a machine gun or a suppressor? In 1934, the federal government enacted the National Firearms Act, and codified into law possession at a federal level of certain items. They created 5 classes: machine guns, suppressors, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, and a catch-all known as any other weapon. They left it up to the states to determine whether or not their civilian citizenship could own those items. At current count, 43 states permit possession of machine guns in one format or another. Only one state, Hawaii, flatly bans possession of all of the items contained in the National Firearms Act of '34, known as Title II weapons, sometimes called Class 3. You should be able to purchase these items in your state, but check first to find out. Some states, while the book says you can possess them, simply don't process the paperwork and allow you to have them. Some states require that they be over a certain age. Machine guns are a lot of fun to shoot. Bob Irwin created an entire industry of machine gun tourism some years back, and it's now become quite popular. People come into the store all the time and say, "Can I own these?" Well, go home to your state, contact a firearms dealer and ask. If you can, and you can afford them, they are quite enjoyable to shoot and fun to possess. Till next week, this is The Legal Brief.
What's really interesting about this gun is it's been in service now with the U.S. military for more than 50 years. What a lot of military units like to do is maybe one guy in 3 will carry an entire bolt assembly. That's most of the stuff that's represented in here. This is the bolt carrier group and the bolt itself. And you can just take this out and pop it in. It's about a 10-second proposition to put a whole new bolt carrier group in the gun. Makes it extremely easy to carry in the field. All of this stuff is what I take with me to the range when I do it. Got a cleaning kit, a cleaning rod, extra charging handles, some lubrication. If I decided to change the configuration of my gun, it's very easy to do. What made that possible was the addition in the modern guns of the Picatinny rail system. It's along the top of the gun and allows mounting of a variety of different sights. We've got some different things here today, and along the sides to have accessories that can go on here. The modern gun will have a laser system, lights involved on it and stuff. I can add these with this system very, very quickly. I could put all that stuff on here, a light and a foregrip and anything that I wanted to do to accessorize this in probably about 5 minutes, have this thing completely changed and reconfigured. That includes the sight system. Modern optics are one of the things that the GIs really love, and there's really been a force multiplier for us in making this gun much more effective in a battle situation. And it's also the thing that's made this one of the most popular sporting rifles ever made. The M4, M16 series rifle absolutely trounces everything else in the gun business as far as sales are to normal citizens. In the semi-automatic configuration like this one is, it's extremely easy to operate. It's very reasonably priced. You get all the things that the GIs love about it. Plug-and-play type systems and a variety of ways to accessorize it. As a gun guy, you think of this as Legos for guns. We've got lots and lots of ways to personalize it. This one I painted. This one has a 1-to-4 optic on it. I can take the power settings anywhere from 1 power to 4 power with a twist right here. At 1 power, I've got a fiber optic enhanced and a tritium, which glows in the dark, reticle in the sight. I can take this out to 400 yards. And that's not only good to be able to make this nice for close range plinking or longer for coyote hunting, but in the hands of a police officer these days, engagement distances are getting really long. You figure your average big new Walmart or other large box store, you can be 200 yards wall to wall down the aisles and that. So an enhanced sight not only enables you to make better hits, but it enables you to separate the good guys from the bad guys. Extra visibility is always a good thing. Red dot sights are extremely important. This is the more popular type. This and the aim point lead the league in red dot sights. And what this allows is a heads-up firing position where the user does not have to close either eye. It's not one or the other. You see the system, you put the sight on target, you press the trigger. And with the characteristics of the bullet flight of the AR-15 family of rifles, the 5.56 cartridges, basically you get a 50-yard zero, and between 5 yards and 400 yards, it's just a matter of holding over. Lots of good stuff we can put on these guns, and changing them around is something that's very popular. Again, the Legos effect. If I wanted a backup sight system for this, they're readily available. They've been designed and they're affordable. I can pop these up should this sight fail. This is co-witness through here, and I can get the same sight picture a little different. This one has a couple of different settings on it, what they used to call day and night, long and short range settings on the gun. One of the other things that's changed a lot over the years is the old .308 caliber, the much bigger bullet that the 5.56 replaced, has become very popular in this. The original AR-10 design of Eugene Stoner's is re-emerged. They make these guns in a variety of calibers now. If you're a hunter, if you're a competition shooter, this is really popular. This particular gun right here is not only an excellent competition gun for long-range shooting or long-range hunting. This one has a 4-16 sight on it. Very powerful. It has a first focal plane reticle on it, so it's very, very easy to use. And this particular gun is in use by the British Army for their designated marksman and has been making hits past 800 yards.
And we are back here on Fired Up. The Supreme Court has received a case this week from the, originally pushed by the National Rifle Association, to allow 18-year-old people in the United States to purchase handguns from firearms dealers. As you may not know, depending on the laws in your state, the federal government restricts gun dealers from selling handguns to anybody under 21 and rifles and shotguns to anybody under 18. So currently, if you're 18, 19, or 20, you can only buy a long gun through a dealer. Most states, not all, allow you to own them at that, but gun dealers cannot sell them. And this is going to the Supreme Court to see if the Supreme Court will say that 18-year-olds are adults and they have a right to buy a handgun.
Well, like here in Nevada, an 18-year-old can possess a handgun if his father wants to give him a handgun or his uncle, and that's fine. However, he cannot purchase one, and that's why when you go to Walmart to buy ammunition, they ask you, is it for a handgun? And if it's 18, okay, you can have it. But I mean, then it gets confusing too. If you buy 22, is it for a handgun or is it a long gun? It goes in either one. But in Nevada, it's really bad. I mean, not bad, but it's a good thing that they can possess them if the parents think that they're mature enough to have it. Of course, you can't buy one or the ammunition for it.
Well, the argument is if they're old enough to go to war, if they're old enough to vote, they can own a rifle or a shotgun. Why not a handgun? You're old enough to drink. I mean, you can do all of these other things as an adult, but why is it just that one element of, no, you can't have a handgun?
Yeah, well, this is basically a civil rights case. It's not a gun issue. It's a civil rights issue is how this is being presented to the Supreme Court. So.
Well, let's look at some practicalities about the decision-making processes that we evidence when we're 18 and 19 years old, and how that sometimes can maybe we don't all use our best judgments when we're that age. But personal story time. I got hired as a cop when I was 19. They had just changed the age of majority in New Jersey from 21 to 18, and you could vote and you could drink, and you could become a cop.
Right.
But what couldn't you do? You couldn't buy ammunition.
Right.
So when I went to the police academy, my mom had to go buy my bullets for me.
I can remember being in charge of the academy. Same thing in New York. I had a kid who was 20 years old in the academy, right, and he couldn't take his gun home. He had to leave his gun. He had to leave his gun at the academy, and all his buddies are going home with their guns and everything. He had to leave his gun home because he wasn't 20. He turned 21 while he was in the academy, and then everybody had a good little party for him and everything. But it was kind of funny. And he took a lot of heat for it too. But
well, even I look back on the decision-making processes that I made, even as a police officer, and sometimes. I'd like to say I was proud of all my decisions that I made as a cop.
No.
But in reality,
But here's the simple answer. Bob's absolutely right, and the people who are bringing this lawsuit are absolutely right. It's a civil rights issue. We have decided randomly it appears that at age 18, you're old enough to join the military without your parents' signature, you're old enough to contract, you can buy a car that'll go 200 miles an hour, you can go out and drive at 200 miles an hour, you can travel internationally, you get a passport on your own, you can vote, you can go to war for your country, you can buy shotguns and rifles, but we allow you to have all those other things. We say you're old enough and mature enough to do that stuff. Get married without somebody saying boo, but you can't buy a handgun. That is fundamentally unfair. Now, there's an argument to be had. The states that are pushing the other side, the argument is, well, we don't think they should be able to do any of that stuff till they're 21 either. Well, why 21? Who picked 21? It's random numbers. The ages were not even an issue until about 1968, when the federal government started addressing age issues with firearms as part of a omnibus gun control act. So this is kind of one of those things where a kid comes back from the war zone, he's 19 years old, he's allowed to have the handgun in his state, let's say Nevada, but he couldn't go buy one. Why? It makes no sense from a civil liberties perspective.
Well, the court kind of just decided that in Chicago when that one decision. They said you can't have a city where you're allowed to have guns but create no place to buy one. 18-year-olds are in that spot.
Is this the first time that a case has been taken up to the Supreme Court based on age and weapons?
Yes.
That's kind of surprising.
Well, it's just that the reality is that until 2008, when Heller came through, we didn't have a real winning track record at the Supreme Court or even the appellate courts on a lot of gun rights issues. It's been moving forward over time. It's like any other legal issue. You do it little bit by little bit. You win the regional, and then you win little larger group areas. This is really becoming to the forefront since we've been at a state of war. We're not, haven't declared war, but we're in a state of war for the last 10, 12 years. And so it's turning into a real, what do we do with these people? We've entrusted them with our country. We've entrusted them with our collective rights in a foreign country, and then they come back and we treat them like second-class citizens.
Well, and if you look at the world today, I think the 18-year-olds today are probably a lot more mature than we were when we were 18. I mean, it seems like they grow up a lot faster now than we were kind of protected back in the 50s and all of that. And it was, I see kids today that I can't believe it. I mean, you're how old? You're 14?
That happens as you get older, buddy.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. It's I'm sure that the criminals, they started off really young with the guns, But as far as us, I was very young when my uncle gave me my first handgun, but I was mature enough. He kept it, obviously. I didn't get to keep it myself, but he wouldn't trust me with it at that point.
That was a muzzle loader, right?
No, come on. You being, just because there's snow on the roof, that doesn't mean there's fire in the furnace.
Okay, I hear it. Mike, now this is going to the Supreme Court. What was the court decisions that led up to it? Was it supportive of?
They were shot down in both cases. They lost, and that's why it's going on up. The district court disagreed. Nope, you don't get to buy handguns at 18. The appellate court said, we don't find any fault with the district court's decision. But because there is something called a circuit split, various circuits have held slightly differently on the possessory portion. As Bob said, some states do, some states don't. In Nevada, it's legal for an 18-year-old to own a handgun. You can go down and get a blue card here in our local jurisdiction where we have registration at 18. You can carry it as long as it's not concealed. This really began when Florida started allowing 18-year-olds to get CCWs. And that really threw a monkey wrench in the system because, all right, we're going to let them have CCWs for a firearm they're federally restricted from purchasing. So it became more of an issue at that point. Several organizations have kind of tried to move these through the system. I just think it's something that the day has come where we have to ask, at what point, why do we have this bifurcated, you're an adult at 18, but you can't do certain things till you're 21? We did the same thing with alcohol. primarily across the country. We said, in my lifetime, there were states where at 18, kids would drive across the border because you could go over and buy, I guess, low-value beer and things at 18 and drink over there, and then they'd come home to a state that was dry.
Hey, my wife, I'm drinking age was 18 in New York for a long, long time, and then they raised it to 21. And my wife fell into that group. Here she was going out with her friends, drinking, and I think she was 18 years old. And all of a sudden, the next day, the law changed, and now she couldn't. It was really bizarre.
Well, the same people that are going to do something irresponsible with alcohol, whether it's 18 or 21, it's going to be the same type of person. Right. If it's a responsible firearm owner and they're 18, they're going to be that same responsible person at 21. We argue on every show that it's unconstitutional for the government to restrict firearms possession for honest citizens. And if that 18-year-old is an honest citizen, then it's unconstitutional to restrict it for them. Whether they're going to be mature and responsible, or they're going to be an idiot and they're going to do stupid stuff, whether it's 18 or 21, it's within the person. But the law says we got to.
And it's prior restraint. We're assuming anybody 18 or 19 is too stupid to have a gun, and that's not true.
I've met some of them, but then they grow up to be 35 and 40 and they're still stupid. So, I mean.
Most 18, 19, 20-year-olds are good citizens. They're not in gangs. They're not creating all these problems. And we're assuming, because they haven't reached this magic birthday number, that they shouldn't have a gun. And it's just wrong. If we let them, it sounds like a cliche. We're letting them go to Afghanistan and get crippled or shot dead, and then telling them they can't have a gun because they're too irresponsible. That just makes no sense. I think they should change this to 18 nationally. And the ones that act out, then you punish them, like we do everybody else. Exactly. We don't assume they're going to act out. So all you guys under 20 can't have a pistol. Let's let the good ones have what they want, have what they should, and the other ones that can handle it, then we slap them and put them in jail or whatever, just like we do with anybody else that's a lawbreaker.
I absolutely agree with that. We allow them to contract, we allow them to vote, we allow them to do all sorts of things at age 18, but we restrict this. They can purchase a much more dangerous firearm than a handgun in the form of a rifle or a shotgun, but because it's small and concealable, again, this goes back to, if everybody remembers, the reason we now have a national average of age 21 to drink is because the federal government started slapping fines and taking away benefits from states that refused to raise their drinking age. The same as they did when they tried to force all the states to reduce the blood alcohol content value for DUIs. This is about controlling and keeping that control as long as possible. And I think, Bob, you just hit the nail on the head. You join the military, you go through basic training, you ship off, and they hand you a machine gun, grenades, C4 explosives and detonators. They tell you to go forth and prosper and do all that stuff that you do in war. Then you come back here and you find out that, oh, gee, I can't have that anymore. I can't buy that. That's crazy.
We're all going to wait to see what the Supreme Court does, because unfortunately the five of us don't get to make that decision. And we're done for our time here on Fired Up on this episode. So we hope we will see you back here again next week, same time, same station. Thanks for staying with us.